Hello, everybody. Welcome to our first Lunch and Learn.
Oh, the first one.
This is our first. You're our honored guest.
Oh, that's awesome.
Lunch and Learn for
That's awesome.
wellness and the Pewag wellness program initiative. How many people are aware that there is a wellness initiative going on at Pewag?
As of today?
As of today.
Yeah.
It kicked off actually by the end of the year in 2016. There was a couple of mailers that went out between January and now, and there was one actually talking about them and what you're talking about today. If you're not aware, and just give me 5 minutes, I'll clue you in. I can show you how to get to the website because there's a couple things that go along with this Lunch and Learn. There's a health assessment that if everybody can take, that's great. You get points. You get points for attending this, and then you can get points for attending different, they call them electronic Lunch and Learns or electronic classes, e-classes that you can sit and, if you're doing nothing at home one night, you don't want to sit and watch CSI or something, you can log on to there and take a class online. The goal is to get everybody active on this program. What do you do with the points? The person with, or I should say the top 3 point getters are eligible for Dick's Sporting Goods gift cards at the end of every quarter. So the one with the most points gets a Dick's gift card quarterly. So go ahead and earn points. You get points for having a personal physician, logging on to Blue Access. So when you're at Blue Access, anybody that goes on and logs on as a member, you get points for that. So make sure that you get going with it because you're putting some money on the table, leaving it there with Dick's gift cards. So, and it's good for everybody. Today is our first Lunch and Learn, as I said. This is Lynn Dugan, and she is a licensed dietitian, right? As well as
Yes.
chef.
Yes. I didn't make your lunch today, but I would have been glad to.
She's based out of Glen Ellen, and she's actually does some teaching at Benedictine University. Benedictine
That's right,
University.
Benedictine
And then as well as is in the process of writing a book on nutrition. So with further ado.
Thank you very much, Joe. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. I'm very honored to be here for your first Lunch and Learn. And you can see my title today, The New You. Not that everybody has to be new, but we could all raise our nutrition bar. Would you agree? We could all raise our health bar. And that's really what today's about. I should entitle this Raising the Health Bar. So it's about eating right, how we can save money doing that. And if you need to, the principle is to losing weight, although not everybody needs to lose weight, but we could all, like I said, raise our nutrition bar, be a little healthier in what we feed our bodies with and how we conduct our lives. So today we're going to talk about what it means to eat right, how to save money. We're going to explore what meal planning is, and then the exercise and winning strategies to maintaining a healthy weight or achieving a healthy weight will be discussed as well. So I thought what we could do, well, maybe just a little bit more about me so that you can understand why you want to listen. I don't know if you still want to listen once you find out, but to be a registered dietitian and a licensed here in the state of Illinois, I did an undergraduate degree in nutrition at the University of Illinois. Then I did an internship in a hospital and I took an exam. And then every 5 years I need 75 hours of continuing education because nutrition is a science and it continues to evolve. And nutritionists, registered dietitians, are trained to interpret the current science and then translate it for consumers and patients in hospitals or corporate wellness programs, okay? So hopefully what I do today is take what the current research and science says about food and nutrition and health and translate it for you, okay? And that's really, on the internet, with technology, you can find the answer to any question you have, but it's not always the right answer. So there might be some things I say today that are new to you, and if you want more information, please ask me because I would explain more and how, what brought me to that conclusion about that topic. And I might point out some of those things as we go along because there's a lot of misconceptions about what is healthy and what is good, and I'm hoping to clear some of that up to you today and make it really, really simple. In fact, this is my tool for making it simple. This is the USDA My Plate. Have you seen this plate before?
No.
No, it's the nutrition icon from the government to teach Americans how to eat. It used to be the pyramid. Do you remember the food pyramid?
Yeah.
And this changed actually it changed in about 2010. And this plate replaced the pyramid, and it makes a lot of sense. And the premise of this plate is if you pile up all the food you ate in one day, your plate should be divided like this at the end of the day. And even food that you don't eat on a plate, if all the food that you eat in one day, at the end, it should be divided like this. This doesn't show me portion sizes, it shows me proportions. So half your plate should be fruits and vegetables, and the other half divided between grains and protein. And then the reason why dairy is out here is because we should have a good source of calcium 3 times a day. So that's how our plate should be divided, and I'm going to kind of unpack each of these food groups to better understand what it means. But this My Plate makes a lot of sense. And if you could just kind of take this My Plate, a mental picture of it. Oh, we've got handouts. They're in the corner. If you guys could just take a handout. If you need a pen to take notes, that'd be awesome. Because what I'm hoping is we all eat differently. We all have different nutrition needs. And if I say something that triggers a thought, oh, I want to make sure I remember that, or that I want more of that in my diet, or I want to shop for that, make some notes on this piece of paper and take it with you. There is a picture of the My Plate on there, so you don't have to just take a mental picture. You could use it see it from the handout. Okay. Before we get started, I just want to talk about just the general principles of what it means, how nutrition and exercise and weight kind of interact. So when you maintain your weight, it means the energy that you take in from the food you eat and what you expend in your calories from work or exercise or daily activity or even your basal metabolic rate, what the energy you need just lying in bed because of how big, how much muscle you have, how old you are. We all burn a certain amount of calories. So the calories that you take in from your food and the calories that you burn for the day, when they match each other, that's when you maintain your weight. You gain weight when you consume more food than you need for energy, and you lose weight when you eat less food than you need for energy. Does that make sense? So it's pretty straightforward. And as we talk about the right kinds of foods to eat, we're also going to balance that and talk about exercise and activity. So as far as the food groups, we're going to start with grains. Now the grains, I see grains on your plate right now. Bread is a grain, cereal, crackers, pasta, tortillas, pitas, English muffins, crackers, those are all grains. What were we going to say? Rice, oats, those are all grains. So the goal for grains is half of all the grains we eat should be whole. And what does that mean? A whole grain, this is a grain of rice, and a whole grain is a grain that leaves this bran layer intact. So think about brown rice. Are you familiar with brown rice? It's brown. That's the bran layer. Okay? When you take that bran layer off, it's white rice. Now there's nothing wrong with white rice, but you're missing out on the nutrition that's in that bran layer. So what's in that bran layer? It's got fiber, it's got some of the vitamins and minerals, it's got a little bit of the protein that's in that rice, and then with every plant food has a unique set of what's called phytonutrients, plant nutrients. And those plant nutrients are in that bran layer. And so those are beyond the vitamins and minerals. We don't really quantify that from a nutrition standpoint. We just know that when you take that bran layer off, that's what you're missing. So half the time we eat grains, we should be consuming whole grains. So that means consuming a food that's made with whole wheat or brown rice or oats and oatmeal or barley or whole grain corn or quinoa. There's lots of different whole grains, and these are just some of them. These are the most common ones. Any questions about whole grains? Now, whole grains are good. We need fiber for good digestion. It helps take the food through our GI tract. Fiber is also good, and we're finding this is a new emerging science, is that the fiber from whole grains, it feeds our good bacteria in our gut. We have bacteria that reside in our gut, and we want the good bacteria in our gut to flourish because it helps us with digestion, it helps us with disease prevention, it helps us even with mood and appetite suppressant. There's lots of good reasons, overall health reasons, for wanting the good bacteria in our gut to thrive. And your diet has a lot to do with it. what you put in your mouth. And so what we're finding is that this fiber that's on whole grains, our gut bacteria, the good stuff, really likes it. And it's good for us. So beyond helping us with digestion, fiber is also very important because it promotes that good bacteria, and that's a good thing. If you've heard of probiotics and prebiotics and symbiotics, that all has to do with keeping our gut bacteria healthy and thriving. And so we know that whole grains have a very positive effect that way as well. Okay, can we make this more exciting? You guys look like you're not very excited, but I have an exercise to wake everybody up at lunchtime. So what I want to do is have you guys look at these food labels. Just take one box. Just take one box to look at, because it's all good and fine if you know what are whole grains, but when you're shopping for whole grains and you're looking for what could be a whole grain. Can I just? Thank you. Okay. So what you're going to do is all right, so just so we all know why we're doing this, okay? If you're like just making oatmeal at home, or you're making brown rice for dinner, you know you're starting with a whole grain and you're using a whole grain and that's your whole grain. But if you buy something and you want to eat something that's whole grain, that's already packaged, like breakfast cereal, there's crackers and pasta, things that have been already put together for you, and you're going to consume it, you want to know if it's whole grain. And if it says made with whole grain, it doesn't necessarily mean there's enough whole grain in there to count it as a whole grain. So this is what I wanted to show you. So in the Nutrition Facts food label, which is right here, we want to look at dietary fiber, and it should be listed right under total carbohydrate. It should say dietary fiber. Do you see that? If it's not listed, if dietary fiber is not listed, then it doesn't have enough in there to list it, and then we would know it's not a whole grain. Your dietary fiber, if it's going to be a whole grain serving, count as a whole grain serving. It should have at least 3 grams of dietary fiber. 3. Okay? Then you're going to check one more place. This is another place to check. In ingredients, it should say whole grain is the first ingredient. So my cereal up here says organic whole rolled oats. Organic just means the way it was grown, and that's just a personal preference of organic or non-organic. But what I'm really concerned about when we talk about whole grain is that it was made with whole grains, and it says whole rolled oats. And so in the ingredient list, ingredients are listed by weight from highest to the lowest, by weight. So the most prominent ingredient in your food product is that first ingredient that's listed. And if it's going to be a whole grain food product, it's probably going to list whole grain first. And then you double check and make sure there's enough whole grain in there to give you 3 grams of dietary fiber. Does anybody have any questions about that? Is anybody surprised by how much fiber is in their food product? If you have 3 grams or more, raise your box so we could see what counts. So I see quinoa and Triscuit crackers and Raisin Bran and whole grain pasta and barley. Barley's a whole grain. Triscuit. Quaker warm and crunchy granola, crackling oat bran, whole grain Thomas whole wheat muffins, toasted oat bran. So we've got lots of different things that count. Now I noticed that Honey Nut Cheerios didn't count, even though it says on here somewhere it says made with whole grain, wholesome whole grain. But what happens is whole grain oats are the first ingredient, but the next ingredient is sugar. And there's nothing wrong with some sugar in your diet, but when you think about my serving of whole grain cereal, if I have so much sugar that it kind of displaces some of that whole grain cereal, I can't necessarily count it as a whole grain serving. So Honey Nut Cheerios only have 2 grams of dietary fiber per serving. Not quite enough to count it as a whole grain. Not a bad cereal. I mean, this came from my pantry. All these things came from my pantry, so we consume these at home, but not necessarily do we count it as a whole grain. Does that make sense? Okay, so do you feel like you can go home and look in your pantry and find your whole grain tortillas or your whole grain pasta, or when you're grocery shopping, you can find your whole grain bread for lunch? Yes? Awesome. Awesome. Okay. We're done with those boxes, but I'll just collect them when you guys are finished. Yeah, right. That's true. That's a personal preference. Okay, so before we move on, I want you to think about the grains that you consume and the whole grains that you consume, and you should consume at least 3 servings a day. So that would be some brown rice, like I said, or whole grain pasta, or whole grain bread, or whole grain breakfast cereal. So think about that, and if it's something that you think you want to work on, just make a note that you want to work on whole grains. You want to make sure I have at least 3 servings of whole grains in my diet. Because one thing I didn't tell you is the reason why the USDA came out with this plate, and the reason why I'm talking to you about it today is because populations of people who eat like this are healthier. And they have less diabetes and less cancer and less heart disease and less obesity because this plate is really heavy in plant foods. And today we're going to focus a lot on plant foods. Fruits and vegetables are plant foods, grains are plant foods, and then we're going to also talk about plant protein. Now, as a dietitian, I am not necessarily a vegetarian, but I consume a lot of plant foods. Plant foods kind of reign my plate, and that's where really all of us should be kind of working towards is more plant foods in our diet. Okay, so I'm going to talk about fruits and vegetables, and this group, half of our plate should be fruits and vegetables. It's a lot of fruits and vegetables, and the key to fruits and vegetables is that we eat a variety of different colors, okay? So notice I haven't told you anything you shouldn't be eating. I'm just talking about things that you should be eating. And when you eat fruits and vegetables, we should be eating a bunch of different colors, the colors of the rainbow. Reds and blues and purples and greens and orange and yellow. Here's my green list. Oranges, whites and browns. And this is because there's a unique phytonutrient in each of those color groups that's creating that color in that fruit or vegetable. So you may have heard, like, when they first discovered lycopene, which is a phytonutrient, and ketchup bottles were saying rich in lycopene. Well, what's lycopene? Lycopene is a phytonutrient. Remember I told you all the plant foods have a unique set of phytonutrients. There's hundreds of them. And we don't know enough about nutrition to give you a supplement and say, here, take this is all you need. But what we do know is that when you have a variety of different colors in your diet, you're going to be gleaning a lot of these phytonutrients from those different color groups. And you'll essentially be arming yourself with the best nutrition you can. So the purple and blue group, there's anthocyanin that's in that group, and that's good for disease prevention, like cancer prevention and things. Some of these antioxidants are good for memory, health, and cardiovascular disease prevention. The white and brown group has a unique phytonutrient called quercetin. So here we thought maybe we thought onions didn't have a bunch of nutrition, but because they're not rich in vitamins and minerals, but they are rich in quercetin and other phytonutrients. So we're finding a lot about the benefits of eating from these different colored food groups. So think about the colors in your diet, and not colors that come from Fruit Loops or Skittles or even Gatorade colors, right? Those don't count. But think about the colors from fruits and vegetables. Is there a color group you might be lacking? And I know this time of year, the berries aren't out, they're not good yet, or even if they are in the grocery store, they don't taste that good, right? Eating fruit and vegetables, eating in season is really key because you're getting the best nutrition from that fruit or vegetable. Or frozen fruit or vegetable or canned fruits and vegetables, absolutely fine. Because those are picked and canned or frozen in season, so they're at the peak of their nutrition as well. So I just want to encourage you to think about the colors of fruits and vegetables, and is there one that you think you might want to incorporate into your diet? And there's lots of different choices. If you don't like, in the green group, if you don't like, I don't know, kale, you don't have to eat kale. You could eat green beans or asparagus or zucchini, other green things. And if you don't like any of those, try a green fruit, like a fruit like kiwi or green grapes, something that's green. Okay, we'll move on. Okay, yes?
A question
Sure.
the fruits and vegetables.
Yes.
When you're picking up the fruits and vegetables in your store,
Yes.
is there a way to figure out which ones are not what they call genetically modified?
Oh, genetically modified. Yeah. Really, as far as the crops go, the only genetically modified fresh fruit or vegetable, I believe, it would be papaya. I don't believe there's any other genetically modified fruits or vegetables like in the produce department. Then in like packaged goods, corn, canola, Those are the big ones that I think of, and they should. A lot of times it won't tell you it's made with genetically modified, but it'll say if it's genetically modified free, GMO free. There's a brand of corn chips I buy all the time, Donkey. It's GMO free. And I'm glad you asked that question about GMO, because genetically modified foods have really are kind of new to our marketplace since the early 90s, and they're gaining kind of momentum and speed. There's things in the pipeline all the time that they're looking at to modify, and we just as consumers need to make just a healthy choice and kind of a personal individual choice about what to consume or what not to consume. And the science is really scattered, and I personally try to avoid GMO corn and corn products. I'm not happy with a GMO corn product. So
It's good for our cars.
it probably is good for our cars. The science is not out yet, though, on how it affects our guts. And so, but I have to say, eating a variety of different foods is always a good thing, and not relying on one food, to give you your nutrition. And when you think you do get all these messages, and what can I eat? I don't want us to be afraid of our food supply. I want us to embrace the variety of our food supply and glean the best nutrition possible. And when you think about what is that, it's really the plate and eating off the plate. So I told you my personal preference about corn, but that's really where I kind of stop with the GMOs. And I could talk more about that, why and all that stuff, but I really want to focus on just the general eating off the plate. But this is another category of food, the next one, that has some controversy involved, and that's dairy or milk. And we really should be consuming 3 servings of dairy food a day. And that's the reason why dairy is kind of out here. It doesn't really, it just helps us to remember that we need 3 servings of a calcium-rich food every day. And that would be consuming milk or a dairy substitute that's also rich in calcium, cheese, or yogurt. Now, the reason why I say it's controversial, because there's been a lot of negative press about dairy. And when you think about it, dairy is really like one of the first farm-to-table foods. It takes less than 48 hours from it to come from the dairy to come to your grocery store and have a milk carton on your shelf. So it's a very local food, and it's a fresh food, and the health standards and the quality standards of milk are very high. And so the milk supply is very safe. And I'm a dairy consumer. I have 4 kids. I don't know if I told you that. And my 3rd child had a dairy allergy since he was a baby. And he outgrew it when he was about 10 or 11. He's got other allergies, but he outgrew his dairy allergy. So he didn't have any dairy at all. So he couldn't have pizza or ice cream or anything made with dairy. So we had to be very intentional about making sure he got enough calcium in his diet, and we relied on soy milk. And soy milk doesn't come naturally with calcium, but it's fortified with calcium. And so if you're consuming a dairy substitute, you certainly can get the calcium from that dairy substitute, but you have to be good about shaking up the carton. Because unlike dairy milk, regular milk, calcium in regular milk is part of the milk. And so it's distributed naturally throughout the fluid of the milk. But for like a soy milk or an almond milk, calcium is added, and calcium is a mineral, and it settles to the bottom. So if you don't shake up that carton, you're not going to get the calcium into your glass, because it settles, like I said, it settles on the bottom. So that's just something really important to know. And the other thing that's important to know, and I'll move my slides here, is that dairy milk and dairy milk products like cheese and yogurt are really rich in nutrients. They're rich in calcium, they're rich in potassium, they're rich in protein. And oftentimes dairy foods are also fortified with vitamin D. And vitamin D is something that is emerging as something we should be aware of, because we used to think that because our skin has the ability of taking sunlight and converting it to a vitamin D substrate, we used to think as nutritionists that vitamin D is not, we don't really need to worry about it because the sun does it for us. But especially in the Midwest, we especially this time of year, we're not out in the sun, right? You guys leave work and it's starting to get better. It's starting to get a little better. But really, to get the vitamin D you need, your arms need to be exposed, your legs need to be exposed. I mean, how often are we doing that? Only a few months out of the whole year. So vitamin D is also something that you're going to get from fortified dairy foods, and that's a good thing. Another thing is some of these dairy substitutes do not have the amount of protein that you would expect. A glass of milk, an 8-ounce glass of milk, has 8 grams of protein. That's even more than you get in an egg. 6 grams of protein in an egg. So 8 grams of protein is a good amount of protein. Almond milk, for instance, only has 1 gram of protein per 8 ounces. So just consider that there's a trade-off with things that aren't. The dairy substitutes are not the same nutrition as regular milk dairy. Any questions? Okay. Okay, keep going. Protein or meats and poultry.
Question, please.
Yes. Oh, sure.
The dairy.
Sure.
Where does the negative press come from then? Is it the hormones
Yes.
in the milk, or like we always buy the what is it called? The hormone-free milk. So what is the explanation for that?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I don't know why public interest groups have kind of had a negative campaign against dairy. I think as far as like the medical community, doctors, I think that there's so many patients come in with GI, gastrointestinal complaints, and they really are looking for something to try first. And the first thing that comes to mind is, well, cut out dairy, because there are people who are lactose intolerant, and lactose intolerant is a real. You're lacking an enzyme that to digest the milk sugar, lactose. The enzyme's called lactase. So that's like a first place where people look. And as far as the hormones, it's not a significant issue in the milk itself, in the milk supply. But you ask a very good question, and I don't know the source of it, but it's prominent and it's prevalent.
I think.
Yes, go
I
ahead.
think the negative press affecting dairy started many, many years ago, when there was the link was first discovered between cholesterol and cardiovascular disease.
Yeah, good point.
Because cholesterol is prevalent throughout dairy foods. I think that's where it really began.
Yeah, that's interesting. And now they're finding that dietary cholesterol doesn't have that big of an impact in cardiovascular disease. So that's interesting too. We are going to talk about fats too today. But yeah, good point. Good point. It has been going on for a while.
It has.
But there's so many people who are afraid of consuming dairy, and that's where I want to reassure you that dairy is a good food. 3 servings a day, or a calcium-rich substitute. Okay. Okay, protein's an easy group to talk about, but I'm going to just start with the plant protein. And I don't know if you noticed it on the vegetable slide. There was those beans and peas at the bottom of the slide. I didn't mention that those foods are rich in protein, and then you'll see them again here in the protein group. So beans and peas, like garbanzo beans, kidney beans, pinto beans, black beans, navy beans, all different kinds of beans, lentils, soybean, and then nuts and seeds like sunflower seeds and almonds and walnuts and peanuts like peanut butter. Those are high in protein. So it's good to consume plant protein when you can. And there's a campaign, an international campaign called Meatless Mondays. And if you sign up, you'll get an email every Monday that says, it's Meatless Monday, here's a recipe, try it out. Eating meatless, having a meal, a main meal that's free of animal protein and it's based on plant protein, plant protein meal is less than an animal protein containing meal. So, and then eating fish and seafood at least once or twice a week is a good thing to do. We don't do that in our family. My youngest son is a very anti-fish eater, and I don't think the fish I'm making in the kitchen smells bad at all, and he'll walk in and he'll be like, "Oh, you're making fish!" Like he could smell it. He's very sensitive to it. So I think that's the reason why I don't make fish as much as I used to. But I like fish, and when I go out to eat, I always order fish because I've got that anti-fish eater in my
How much
house.
fish is too much?
Oh,
Because I love fish.
Yeah.
I eat it all the time.
yes.
You know?
And if you are a heavy consumer of fish, yes, mercury.
Right.
And I would try to eat most of my fish that is wild caught wild
I
caught
do.
fish.
I
Yeah,
only
that's
eat
good.
wild caught. I don't
Yeah.
eat anything farmed.
And you could, there's a website, it's seafoodwatch.com, I believe, and it'll give you the mercury content. But that's a good question. See, if you're not a huge fish eater, eating any fish is better than no fish at all. And if you consume a lot of fish, then just be, I appreciate your question because it's good to be a discerning, have that discernment when you purchase your fish. All right, any questions about protein? All right, we're getting close. All right, so what I did was I put together a day of eating. So how do I take all these recommendations I just told you? 5 different servings of fruits and vegetables, half your plate. 3 servings of whole grain every day. 3 servings of dairy every day. And then your protein. We don't really lack protein in the American diet, but we should have about 6 ounces a day. So I started my day with a whole grain cereal and some fruit. Probably not blueberries. This morning I had a banana because my blueberries lately they're not really in season. In the early summer, I usually pick blueberries and then put them in my freezer and use them for muffins or smoothies but my frozen blueberry supply is gone, so I put bananas on my cereal. All right, I also could blend a smoothie with yogurt, fruit, banana, and grab a cereal bar, and I've got the same kind of balance as far as the food groups. I've used one of my fruit servings, I consumed one of my whole grain servings, and I consumed a dairy serving. For lunch, a turkey and cheese wrap on a whole grain tortilla. Sugar snap peas would give me my green vegetable, pretzels, and then 100% fruit juice. I can count 1 glass of juice, I can count as my fruit serving, but I would not count more than that because just like we talk about whole grains and refined grains, we're missing the nutrition from the rest of that piece of fruit. So 100% fruit juice, absolutely fine, but don't rely only on juice to be your fruit servings. Make sense? Okay. And then for dinner, a stir fry. I like stir fry because it cooks up really fast. The most time-consuming thing about a stir fry is that you've got to have all the ingredients already prepped because once you start cooking, it's ready really fast. So I try to find things in the grocery store that are already chopped up for me. When I'm really working fast in the kitchen, I use shredded carrots that are already shredded. Baby spinach is always, the one I buy is washed and ready to go. Sliced mushrooms, that would be a great stir fry. And then I would slice up my chicken breast, my boneless, skinless chicken breast, or a lean piece of steak, or even tofu, and do a little stir fry with some soy sauce, some garlic or ginger, maybe a little sugar to sweeten it up a bit to make it that teriyaki flavor. Anyway, brown rice is my whole grain, and milk, yes.
I just had a question, how you compare fresh vegetables and fruits to either
frozen? Yes.
or canned?
Yes. So I alluded to it when I was talking about eating in season, and frozen and canned fruits and vegetables are picked and frozen or canned while they're at the peak of their nutrition content. So frozen and canned are good options as well. Yep. Okay, the reason why I added this oatmeal cookie, not only because I like oatmeal cookies, but there are things that we eat in our diet that are not on the plate, right? And I really focused on the foods that are on the plate, but there are a lot of things we eat that aren't on the plate. So what I want to encourage you is think about those foods that you eat that aren't on the plate. Right now, think about those. Is it, yeah, well, pizza can be grain, vegetable, protein, dairy, but I'm thinking of things like coffee drinks or ice cream or cookies or candy or chips or a beer or a glass of wine, things that are not on this plate.
Like they're on it.
Yeah. But wait, you didn't give me a chance to finish my sentence. But I want to tell you there's no bad foods. There's no bad foods, but there are bad diets. And a bad diet is when those foods that are off the plate take the place of things that should be on the plate, okay? So that's really what we're talking about. This is what you should work towards, and if there are things that you're eating that are off the plate, just make sure they're not crowding out something that should be on the plate. For instance, snacking on, maybe a fruit or vegetable if you're not getting your 5 a day might be a good idea, because you think about it, if we eat 5 times a day, breakfast, lunch, snack, dinner, snack, and we need 5 different fruits and vegetables every day, we almost need to eat a fruit or vegetable every time we eat. So we don't typically eat like that, but that's really where we should work towards. So anyway, this is what I want you to think about, is those things that are off the plate. Just make sure that they're not taking the place of things that should be on the plate. And if you're interested, I do write a website. I do publish a website, and it's called myplatetoyours.com. If you're interested in easy, healthy, yummy recipes, my mother taught me how to cook. She's Italian. I don't cook only Italian, but she's the one that got me started in the kitchen. And then I think having my third child with all those food allergies, and I was working full time, and I had to cook everything from scratch because he had so many different allergies. It made me realize that in the kitchen, we don't always have a lot of time. But if we're trying to eat from real foods, then I have some recipes to help you, because I have 30 minutes or less is my recipes on my website. Easy, healthy stuff. So if you're interested, I have a sign-up sheet here to get on my newsletter. I won't be offended if you don't sign up. Put your email and write legibly, please, because I'll add you to my email distribution list. Okay, I told you I'd promise I would talk about saving money. And when you eat at home, you tend to save money because you reduce your food waste, because your grocery shopping takes you to things that you want to make, but then if you abandon that during the week and order out, then some of that food goes to waste. So eating at home is a good thing to do when you can. You could use leftovers for lunch. You could cook a recipe and double it and then freeze it for another meal. When you purchase less tender cuts of meat and cook them low and slow, because less tender cuts of meat are less expensive for sure. Another way to save money is to meal plan. And meal planning really starts with where you're at. Let's say you only eat 3 meals at home. Well, then start there. Start planning with those 3 meals. Let's say you don't want to plan breakfast and lunch. It's okay. But if you start planning maybe your dinners, and maybe just your 3 dinners that you eat at home ahead of time, then on the weekend you do grocery shopping, and then you know what you're going to eat during the week. And it does save money, because you're putting money towards the things that you're actually going to eat. And it also improves our nutrition. It improves your sanity, because you get home and it's kind of like, what's for dinner, And too bad my dog doesn't cook, because it would be perfect, right? Does anybody have a slow cooker at home, a crock pot? Do you use it?
Occasionally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I use mine a lot, and I have on my website I have a lot of slow cooker recipes that are good for you kind of recipes, and really tasty. Yesterday I made a turkey chili, and it was really wonderful. I haven't published it yet, but I'm going to, because it was super simple, and it was ready when I got home. So anyway, okay. Now, just about losing weight, and I just know we've got just a few more minutes, and I don't want to take up a lot of your time, because I really want to be able to answer your questions if you have any. Losing weight starts with eating right, and that's why I put the My Plate on this slide. But it also incorporates exercise, and we should all be exercising about 5 times a week, 30 minutes a day, each time you exercise. And kids actually should be active every day.
There's some new information that's coming out now.
Yes.
That says, if you just get in the gym on the weekends, you're still okay.
That's what I wanted to tell you. Anything is better than nothing. Okay, this is the gold standard. Just like I showed you the plate, this is the gold standard. But you're absolutely right. And they're also finding it, if you break up your exercise, if you break it up where you're exercising, let me just show you, 10 minutes 3 times a day, or 10 minutes twice a day, you're going to get the same benefit as that 30 full minutes, doing 10 minutes 3 times a day. So 10 minutes taking that dog out in the morning, maybe 10-minute quick walk at lunch. I don't know if you have a place to walk out here. Just don't get hit by a truck pulling out, right? Or, and then 10 minutes when you get home, right? Getting those 10 minutes in will give you that 30 minutes that you need. So, any questions about exercise? Find something that you like to do. I skipped over this picture. It is my family. This was a summer vacation 2 years ago, right before this kid in the middle went to college. we try to take a vacation in June. So 2 of my kids my girls are in college, and my son is a senior in high school, so everyone's getting really old. But our favorite family vacations have to do with hiking or being outside and exploring. My boys would rather go fishing, but anyway. So yeah, find people to do it with, or just find activities that you enjoy. Okay. That was in Yosemite. That was my kids. Okay. So my husband and I, we're getting older, and our kids are getting stronger and faster. And we did this big hike up to Half Dome, and they waited for us 1 full hour, 3 times on that full day hike, because they were so far ahead of us, and then they waited until we got there, and then they kept going, and then they waited again. And it made me realize, yeah. That was nice that they waited for us, but they were kind of frustrated, like, hurry up, you old people. Okay, I'm going to go through these winning strategies. So this is beyond the My Plate and beyond exercise. What else do we need to know as far as eating? So being mindful with what we put in our mouths, and we already talked about there's no bad foods, but what I didn't talk about is the fact that we live in such a convenience-minded, fast-paced society that oftentimes we're eating and we're doing other things. We're driving the car, or we're on the computer, or we're watching TV. We're doing other things while we're eating, and so what we've done is we've missed out on that opportunity to recognize when we're full and when we're hungry. Okay, so it's really important to be more mindful of our meal when we're eating, of our hunger cues, because hunger's on a scale between, the hunger scale is like hungry and famished, or full and stuffed. And we need to understand when we're on either side of that, when we are really hungry and when we are full. And if we don't pay attention to it, we miss that opportunity. And I think this next generation, this younger generation, is even going to have a harder time with it, because they're even busier than we were, and we are. And so paying attention to that is really important. And then plan, like I talked about, for your meals and snacks, and set up an environment for success. I haven't walked around your company to know, are there bowls of fruit out, or are there bowls of candy out, right? And like sometimes a clementine is the sweetest thing you could have, gives you more flavor than a piece of chocolate sometimes, right? But they find that people who, like in their kitchen, have bowls of fruit out weigh 13 pounds less than people who have bowls of chips or candy or things. That makes sense. That environment has been set up for success when you promote those foods that are on the plate. And then slow down when you eat. It takes 20 minutes for your brain to register that your stomach is full. And chew slowly. If your mom has ever told, when you were little, if your mom ever told you, slow down, you're eating too fast, well, she was probably right. Because it does take a full 20 minutes for our brains to register that our stomach is full.
When you're a hungry grown boy, you're going to eat faster.
You are going to eat fast, you're right.
Nobody's going to be.
No one's going to, yes, you're right. Fast foods happen, and I should, instead of calling this convenience eating, I should just call this eating fast foods. But just be watchful. Just know that you've got to kind of balance a fast food meal out with your day. Because does your fast food meal look like this? Sometimes? Well, if you're eating like at Qdoba, because you can get the beans, right, and the whole grain, and the, yeah. Chipotle, exactly. I spent 3 years as the dietitian at McDonald's Corporation in Oak Brook, nutrition communications, and you have to be very intentional if you're eating if you're a regular McDonald's consumer to end up with a diet that looks like this, unless you're eating all their salads, which is typically not the average McDonald's consumer. So, all right, my favorite sandwich is the Daily Double, but we'll talk about that another day. All right, smart snacking. I already mentioned how we have to consider our snacks as important as our meals, and trying to compensate. Think about snacking as far as what food groups might you be lacking in your meals, and compensate that with your snacks. For instance, snacking on, fruits like I talked about, clementines or bananas or grapes or something, or nuts and seeds if you want some more plant protein in your diet, or some whole grains. All right. And then eating breakfast is really important. I don't want to forget about that, because they find that people who eat breakfast have a healthier diet in general. And it helps not to let large amounts of time go without eating. Breakfast is called breakfast because it breaks the morning fast. So we're not eating when we're sleeping, and our brain uses carbohydrates to function. And so when we wake up and we eat breakfast, that's going to fuel our brain. So we're more attentive, our memory is more reactive, and more alert. And eating breakfast does reduce that famished hunger feeling, and it promotes healthy food choices. Drinking water, hydration during the day is really important. I don't know if you guys have a chance to. There's a water cooler here. I don't know if there's other water coolers in your building, but anyway, carrying a water bottle during the day and consuming 8 to 11 cups. 60% of our body is made from water, and so it's really important to stay hydrated. Sometimes we confuse the feeling of thirst with hunger. So if we're dehydrated, sometimes we confuse that feeling with I'm hungry, right? Where it might just be I'm thirsty. And so it's really important to stay hydrated so we can satisfy that need. Okay. If you're interested in this and you want more information, this supertracker.usda.gov is a good website to go to. It will give you a personalized nutrition and exercise plan. It tracks your food and physical activity, and it also gives you tips and support for healthier choices. And I'm going to show you how this works. So it's called supertracker.usda.gov. So what you do is you put in your height and your weight, your exercise, your age, and it spits out how many calories you need every day, and then how you would get those calories based on the USDA MyPlate. So this guy here, his name is Barry Well, and he needs 8 servings of grains every day, 3 servings of vegetables, 2 cups of fruit, so that's 5 servings of fruits and vegetables every day. He needs 3 servings of dairy, 6.5 ounces of protein, and 7 teaspoons of oil. And that's the added fat that I told you we would talk about. But when we talk about adding fat to our diet, it's adding fat that is more of vegetable sources. That's why it says oils. So things that are unsaturated, like polyunsaturated and monounsaturated, which is olive oil, canola oil, safflower, sunflower, corn oil. Yeah, those are all unsaturated oils. But 7 teaspoons a day is not a lot. You figure a tablespoon is 3 teaspoons, so that's 2 tablespoons plus a teaspoon. It's not a lot. Okay, well, it's because fats are very concentrated in calories. So protein and carbohydrates per gram give you 4 calories. Fat gives you,
That's 9.
Exactly.
9 calories a gram.
He knows, yes. And alcohol is 7 calories a gram.
That I didn't know, but I'm glad you said that.
Yes. Okay, so new you. Small changes yield big results. When you eat right, you could save money, you could lose weight if you want to, with exercise included, and that's it. Thanks for your time today. Any questions? Yes?
How big, you talk about servings, how big is a serving?
Okay, it depends on the food. So that's where this will help you see it. So a serving of like bread is a slice of bread, or half a cup of cooked pasta or rice, or a tortilla or a pancake, or a cup of cereal. So it depends on each of these food groups. A cup of raw vegetables or a half a cup of dried fruit, that's a serving. That's a good question. You're absolutely right, that's a good question. Anything else? Yes?
In your opinion, is it worth spending the money for organically grown food?
Yes, I really love that question. Okay, so I would say I don't buy all my fruits and vegetables organic. I tend to buy things that I don't peel, and things that are on the Dirty Dozen list. There's a list published by the Environmental Working Group, EWG, and they just published their new list, and I haven't seen it. They publish it in March every year. But it lists the 12 top foods that are high pesticide residue.
Yeah.
But it's still, strawberries are usually on that list, apples are usually on that list, grapes are usually on that list, but it's something important to know, that's still a very small amount of pesticide residue. It's still considered safe. So it just depends on, I would say eating fruits and vegetables, whether they're organic or not, is better than not getting your fruits and vegetables. Absolutely. And if you want to raise your nutrition bar even more, then maybe purchasing organic from that Dirty Dozen list would be a good place to start. Good question. But the health benefits of making sure you're consuming 5 servings of fruits and vegetables far outweighs any pesticide residue in your diet. So, okay. Are you excited? Is this good stuff? Next time, maybe I could cook your lunch. That's why I really enjoy doing cooking classes. I teach in Glen Ellen. It's kind of not so close. Does anybody live close to Glen Ellen? I grew up in Downers Grove. That would have been closer, but I teach in Glen Ellen. But I teach cooking classes, and I find that it's a really good way to teach nutrition because they could taste it. You know, if you can't taste this food, does this sound like a boring diet? Well, maybe it sounds boring, but you've got to try it. Check out my website because I think you'll find some really good stuff. My kids have always been my taste testers, and I don't put anything on my website unless I get the thumbs up. So anyway, thank you very much. I'm here around if you have any individual questions. I'd be glad to answer. But thanks for having me today. I appreciate your attention. Thank you.